You don't become irresistible by being louder. You become irresistible by being clearer. I know life feels noisy right now. Everyone is talking, everyone is rushing, everyone is trying to prove something. And in the middle of all that, you're just trying to breathe, trying to hear your own thoughts, trying to figure out who you are and who you're becoming. But let me tell you something I learned the hard way. Greatness is not born in chaos, it's born in stillness. In the quiet moments where God whispers direction, where your heart reveals truth, where your spirit finally catches up with your dreams. Today, I want to share with you 7 lessons, 7 steps that taught me the power of stillness and why it makes you magnetic, grounded, and unforgettable. There comes a moment in every person's life when the world around them feels like it's spinning too fast. You wake up already behind. You go to bed still unfinished. You say yes when your heart whispers no. You run from task to task, from expectation to expectation, convincing yourself that this is what ambition looks like, that this is what success demands. And for a while, it works. You feel productive, you feel relevant, you feel wanted. But slowly, quietly, without warning, something inside you begins to fade. The joy, the clarity, the confidence, the sense of who you really are. I lived like that once, constantly moving, constantly performing, constantly proving. I thought if I kept going faster, life would reward me more. But instead, the faster I moved, the further I drifted from myself. There were days I felt disconnected from my own purpose, like my life was happening to me instead of being created by me. And one day, in a rare moment of honesty, I felt this quiet voice inside me say, "Stop, just for a moment, stop." That pause, that tiny moment of stillness, opened my eyes. Because I realized something that changed everything. Movement isn't the same as progress. Busyness isn't the same as purpose. Activity isn't the same as alignment. We keep trying to prove our worth through motion, but real strength, real control, real power comes from being able to stop when you need to breathe, to listen, to choose. Stillness doesn't mean you are inactive. Stillness means you are intentional. It means you're not living life on reflex anymore. You're not reacting to everyone else's demands. You're responding to your own truth. You're not running on fumes, you're running on direction. I learned that the most powerful people are not the loudest in the room, nor the busiest, nor the ones juggling 1,000 things. The most powerful people are the ones who know when to pause, when to hold still, when to pull back their energy, and center themselves before they step forward again. That kind of self-control is rare. That kind of presence is magnetic. And that is what makes you irresistible. Not the noise you make, but the clarity you carry. Think of an arrow. Before it moves forward with strength, it must be pulled back into stillness. That tension, that pause, that moment before release. That is where the real power builds. That is where direction is decided. That is where intention is set. The arrow does not rush. The arrow waits. And because it waits, it soars. When you embrace stillness, you become like that arrow. You stop scattering your energy in 100 directions. You stop giving yourself away to things that don't grow you. You stop seeking validation in constant motion. Instead, you gather yourself. You center yourself. You choose your path with wisdom instead of fear. And the moment you move again, you move with purpose. People feel that. They feel when someone is anchored. They feel when someone is grounded. They feel when someone is operating from clarity instead of chaos. And that feeling, that calm power, is what makes you unforgettable. Because it's rare in a world that's addicted to noise. Stillness teaches you discipline. It teaches you patience. It teaches you how to say no without guilt and yes without hesitation. It teaches you how to trust your own instincts. It teaches you how to walk into a room without needing attention. Because your energy already speaks for you. You stop explaining yourself. You stop defending your choices. You stop begging for understanding. You stop seeking approval. You simply decide. And people feel that decisiveness. They feel the strength that comes from someone who knows themselves. It's the kind of strength that doesn't shout. It doesn't brag. It doesn't demand. It simply exists. steady, calm, undeniable. There is a quiet confidence that grows inside you when you no longer fear the stillness, when you no longer run from your own thoughts, when you no longer distract yourself from your own dreams. In that quiet space, you reconnect with your purpose. You rediscover your voice. You remember your power. And once you taste that kind of clarity, you stop chasing the world. You start choosing your lives. Stillness is not an escape from responsibility. It's a return to yourself. It's the moment you gather your power, realign your spirit, and remind yourself that you are not defined by how fast you move, but by how intentionally you live. That intention, that composure, that grounded sense of self is what makes you powerful. It is what makes you unforgettable. It is what makes you irresistible. There will always be moments in life when something or someone tries to shake the ground beneath your feet. A careless comment, a sudden setback, a disappointment you didn't see coming. And in those moments, the first instinct most of us have is to react. Instantly, emotionally, without thinking. Because when something hurts, the heart wants to defend itself. When something threatens us, the ego wants to fight back. When something feels unfair, the mind wants to prove a point. But here's the truth I learned after many mistakes, many impulsive words, many moments where I wished I could rewind time. Reacting is easy, and it almost always makes things harder. Responding though, responding with intention, with clarity, with self-control, that is where your real power lives. There was a time when I thought strength meant being quick. Quick to answer, quick to argue, quick to protect myself. I thought it showed confidence, but the older I got, the more I realized that real confidence isn't fast at all. It's measured, it's patient, it's rooted in understanding rather than emotion. It comes from a place within you that isn't easily moved by insecurity or fear. People who react live on the surface of their emotions. People who respond live from the depth of their wisdom. And that depth only comes from stillness, from the ability to pause before you speak, breathe before you move, think before you decide. That pause is not weakness, that pause is power. There were moments in my own life when I was tempted to fire back, to prove myself, to match someone's energy just to show I could. But every time I chose that path, I felt myself shrinking. Because reacting means someone else is controlling your behavior. It means they pulled you out of your center. It means they dictated how you showed up. But the moment you choose to pause, the moment you choose to stay grounded even when everything around you tries to pull you into chaos, you take back your power. You take back your peace. You take back your voice. Some people will misunderstand your silence. They'll think you don't care. They'll think you're weak. They'll think you're avoiding conflict. Let them think whatever they want, because silence is not the absence of courage, it's the presence of self-respect. It's the awareness that you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to respond to every insult thrown your way. You don't have to give energy to anything that brings you out of alignment with who you are. The truth is, you outgrow the need to be right. You outgrow the urge to react. You outgrow the impulse to prove your worth. And you step into a deeper kind of strength, the kind that doesn't shout, doesn't chase, doesn't crumble. It took me years to understand that some battles are not mine to fight. Some people are not mine to convince, and some moments are not meant for immediate answers. Stillness helped me see that. Stillness taught me that the right response comes from clarity, not emotion. And clarity only appears when you slow down enough to hear your own thoughts above the noise. Think about the times you reacted too quickly. Think about how often it led to regret, misunderstanding, or unnecessary pain. Now think about the times you paused, even for a second, and how differently things unfolded. That tiny moment of stillness can shift the entire direction of your life. It can save relationships. It can protect your dignity. It can prevent you from making a decision you can't undo. Responding means you stay in control. It means you're guided by your values, not your triggers. It means you're not giving your power to every situation that tries to provoke you. And trust me, the world will try. People will push you. Life will test you. But not everything deserves your reaction. Not everything requires your voice. Not everything needs your energy. There is a grace in restraint, a dignity in patience, a beauty in the way you carry yourself when you refuse to let chaos pull you out of character. People notice that, they feel that, they respect that. You become someone who cannot be manipulated, someone who cannot be provoked, someone who cannot be thrown off balance by every emotion that passes through the room. You become centered, grounded, unshakable. And that presence, that calm, controlled, intentional presence, is irresistible. It draws people toward you because it's rare. In a world full of noise, someone who has mastered the pause stands out without trying. So the next time life tests you, take the breath. Take the pause. Let the stillness speak before you do, because your strength is not measured by how quickly you react, but by how wisely you respond. There is a kind of noise in this world that doesn't come from cars or crowds or conversations. It comes from expectations. It comes from comparisons. It comes from the pressure to be everything, to do everything, to keep up with everyone. And when that noise grows too loud, you lose the most valuable voice you have, your own. I've lived through seasons where I couldn't hear myself anymore, where the world was speaking so loudly that my inner truth got buried under opinions, judgment, and endless advice. People will tell you who they think you should be. They will tell you what is practical, what is safe, what is acceptable, what is normal. But none of those voices know your soul the way you do. None of them carry your purpose. None of them live your life. Stillness taught me this. When everything around me felt chaotic, when choices felt overwhelming, when I questioned my path, it was in the quiet that I finally heard myself again. Not the version of me the world wanted, but the one God created. There is a profound difference between listening and hearing. Listening is external. Hearing is internal. Listening is about receiving sound. Hearing is about receiving truth. And truth doesn't shout. Truth whispers, which is why you need silence to recognize it. Think about how often you have said, "I don't know what to do," when deep down you actually did. You knew what felt right. You knew what felt wrong. You knew which option scared you because it was new, and which one felt comforting because it was familiar. You knew, but the noise made you doubt it. The world has a way of convincing you that your intuition is silly, dramatic, or unrealistic. But intuition is not a luxury. It's guidance. It's protection. It's the wisdom of your spirit trying to redirect you toward what you were meant for. And intuition becomes louder, stronger, sharper, only in stillness. There were decisions I made in my life because of pressure, because of fear, because I didn't want to disappoint anyone. And every one of those choices pulled me further away from who I truly was. But the decisions I made from stillness, from inner alignment, from prayer, from that sacred quiet, those are the decisions that shaped my life. The ones that felt like truth. The ones that felt like home. You cannot hear yourself when you're constantly surrounded by noise. You cannot know yourself when you're constantly performing. You cannot follow your purpose when you're constantly chasing approval. But the moment you create space, even a small one, the moment you let yourself sit in the quiet long enough to ask, "What do I want?" everything begins to shift. Stillness brings clarity. Clarity brings direction. Direction brings confidence. And confidence brings freedom. In that quiet, you begin to realize what you've been carrying that wasn't yours. Maybe the fear came from someone else's story. Maybe the doubt came from someone else's insecurity. Maybe the expectation came from someone else's unfinished dreams. And when you sit still long enough, you begin to separate your voice from theirs. You begin to recognize what is truly yours. This is why stillness is not passive. It is powerful. It is radical. It is courageous. Because it forces you to confront the truth of what makes you happy, the truth of what breaks your spirit, the truth of what you've been pretending not to see. And once you know that truth, you can't unknow it. It becomes your compass. You stop asking for permission. You stop waiting for validation. You stop apologizing for wanting more. And you start living from your center. And something magical happens. When you do, your energy begins to shift. people feel the difference. They feel when someone is aligned. They feel when someone speaks from truth instead of insecurity. They feel when someone is no longer lost in the noise. A person who hears themselves stands taller, moves slower, speaks with more purpose. They aren't rushed. They aren't frantic. They aren't trying to fit in. They aren't trying to impress. They're simply grounded in who they are. That grounded presence is irresistible because it carries authenticity. It carries conviction. It carries a quiet confidence that says, I know who I am, even if you don't understand me yet. Stillness connects you back to the source of your strength. It reconnects you with your soul. It helps you remember what you were created for. And when you live from that place, from your truth, your intuition, your God-given direction, you stop surviving and start becoming. Because when you quiet the world, you finally give yourself permission to be heard. And that is the beginning of everything. There's a kind of exhaustion that doesn't show up on your face. It doesn't look like dark circles or heavy eyelids. It lives deeper, in your spirit, in the corners of your mind, in the small, quiet spaces of your heart. It's the exhaustion of carrying too much, giving too much, tolerating too much. And when you're tired in that way, you start accepting things you were never meant to accept. You stay in conversations that drain you. You stay in situations that shrink you. You stay around people who take more than they give, not because you want to, but because you're too tired to fight for better. I've been in that place where I was so busy trying to hold everything together that I didn't realize things were already falling apart inside me. When your mind is overwhelmed, your standards soften. When your heart is tired, your boundaries disappear. When your spirit is restless, the version of you that knows your worth gets quiet. But here's the truth. Tiredness is not weakness, it's a signal. It's your soul's way of saying pause, breathe, return to yourself. And that return only happens in stillness. Stillness saves you. Stillness restores you. Stillness resets you. When you finally sit with yourself, without noise, without roles, without expectations, something powerful begins to happen inside you. You reconnect with the version of yourself that is whole, grounded, worthy, and strong. You begin remembering the standards you once had, the ones that got buried under exhaustion and responsibility. There was a point in my life where I realized I'd been running on empty, giving from a place that had nothing left to give. When you live that way, even love becomes heavy. Even dreams feel like work. And I remember thinking, this can't be my normal. This can't be the standard I live by. I wanted to feel alive again. I wanted to feel present. I wanted to feel like myself. It was stillness that brought me back. Because in silence, the truth gets louder. In rest, your instincts return. In reflection, your standards rise. Rested hearts don't settle. Rested spirits don't cling. Rested souls don't chase things that break them. When you're restored from within, you become ruthlessly clear about what belongs in your life and what doesn't. And that clarity is power. You begin to recognize relationships that felt like love but were actually attachment. You recognize opportunities that looked shiny but weren't aligned. You recognize commitments you made out of guilt, not purpose. You finally see the difference between comfort and growth, between loyalty and self-neglect. Stillness gives you back your vision, your inner compass. And once you see clearly again, you rise. You rise in your standards. You rise in your expectations. You rise in the way you allow people to treat you. You rise in the way you treat yourself. You stop saying yes to things that dilute your peace. You stop tolerating voices that belittle your dreams. You stop allowing energy that feels heavy or forced. People might feel the shift. Some may feel threatened by it. Some may call you distant. Some may think you've changed. But that's because you've returned to yourself. And every time you return to yourself, you become stronger. You become more centered. You become more authentic. Think about it. You make better choices when your mind is rested. You attract better people when your heart is grounded. You welcome better opportunities when your spirit is clear. You are more selective, more intentional, more empowered. And that shift doesn't just improve your life, It elevates your presence. People feel it. They feel the steadiness in your voice. They feel the confidence in your decisions. They feel the calm in your energy. They feel the quiet authority that comes from someone who knows their worth. It's not arrogance, it's alignment, it's not pride, it's protection. You're simply refusing to abandon yourself again. And that refusal makes you magnetic. Your standards are not just rules, they are reflections of your self-respect. And when that self-respect gets restored, when you stand tall in who you are, when you no longer allow the world to shape you more than your own truth does, that's when your life changes. That's when you stop walking into rooms hoping to be noticed and start walking into rooms already knowing you belong. That's when you stop chasing people's approval and start choosing your own peace. That's when you stop shrinking to fit spaces that were never meant for you and start expanding into the person you were always meant to be. Stillness doesn't just make you calm, it makes you powerful. It raises your standards. It sharpens your awareness. It deepens your self-love. And when your standards rise, everything in your life rises with you. Because a rested spirit is a fearless spirit. A grounded soul is an unshakable soul. And a person who knows their worth becomes truly irresistible. There is a moment in every person's journey when they realize that dreams don't come true just because we want them to. They come true because we build them. Brick by brick, choice by choice, day by day. And that building, that construction of the life you want, doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in the quiet. In the early mornings when the world is asleep. In the late nights when no one is watching. In the hours where discipline is the only witness to your commitment. For the longest time, people think success is about talent or luck or being at the right place at the right time. But the truth is, none of those things matter if you haven't learned the discipline to meet your own potential. Discipline is the bridge, the invisible force that carries you from where you are to where you want to be. And that force begins in silence. I learned this very early in my life. There were no cheering crowds, no bright lights, no constant motivation pulling me forward. There were just quiet sacrifices, the kind no one applauds, the kind no one thanks you for. Waking up when my body wanted to sleep, practicing when my mind wanted to quit, studying when my friends were relaxing, choosing growth when comfort was easier. Those moments don't feel glamorous, but they are the moments that shape you. Discipline asks you to do what is necessary, not what is convenient. And doing what is necessary often feels lonely. It feels slow. It feels repetitive. But that repetition is where mastery is built. That consistency is where identity forms. The small daily decisions, the ones no one sees, those are the decisions that define your future. Stillness trains you for that. Because in a quiet mind, you learn how to focus. In a quiet environment, you learn how to commit. In a quiet moment, you learn how to fight the pull of distraction. Discipline and stillness are intertwined. Stillness sharpens your awareness. Discipline directs it. You may look at successful people and think, they're just gifted, but what you don't see is the years they spent building their foundation. You see resumes, not routines, achievements, not habits, trophies, not work ethic, but it is discipline, silent, humble discipline that holds every accomplishment together. There were mornings I had to remind myself why I started. There were nights I had to talk myself out of giving up. There were seasons where progress felt invisible, where effort felt pointless. But what I learned is this: discipline isn't about intensity. It's about consistency. You don't have to move fast, you just have to move forward. Even if it's small, even if it's slow, even if no one sees it. And here's the thing, discipline doesn't just build your goals, it builds your character, it builds your resilience, it builds your capacity to handle success when it finally arrives. Because success requires responsibility. Responsibility requires maturity. And maturity grows in the soil of stillness, where you reflect, realign, and redirect your efforts. Stillness gives you clarity. Discipline gives you direction. Together they create momentum, the kind that lasts, not the short-lived burst of motivation that disappears after a week. not the temporary excitement that fades when things get hard, but true momentum, the internal fire that keeps you going when circumstances don't match your expectations. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you strengthen your identity. You whisper to yourself, I am someone who keeps going. I am someone who follows through. I am someone who honors their commitments. And eventually that identity becomes effortless. It becomes natural. It becomes who you are. Discipline doesn't make your life smaller. It makes your life bigger. Because once you discipline your mind, the world can no longer control you. Once you discipline your habits, your future becomes predictable. Once you discipline your emotions, you stop being reactive and start becoming powerful. People will call you focused. They will call you driven. They will say you're different. But you're not different. You're disciplined. And discipline looks like magic to people who aren't used to consistency. There's also a deeper layer to this. Discipline is an act of faith. When you work before you see results, that's faith. When you try again after failing, that's faith. When you keep moving before the door opens, that's faith. Discipline is the physical expression of believing in something that hasn't happened yet. And faith requires stillness. You cannot hear God when you're moving too fast. You cannot feel guidance when you're drowning in noise. You cannot follow intuition when your mind is scattered. Discipline takes root in quiet moments, in the decision to stay when it's hard, to continue when it's boring, to trust when it's uncertain. And here's the best part. Once discipline becomes a habit, confidence becomes natural. You stop doubting yourself. You stop questioning your ability. You stop needing external validation because you know, not hope, not guess, but know that you have the strength to follow through. And that kind of confidence, it's magnetic, it's attractive, it's irresistible. Because people are drawn to those who are committed, focused, and aligned with their purpose. Not because they are perfect, but because they are disciplined. And it all starts in the quiet. There is a kind of power that doesn't make noise. A kind of strength that doesn't need to announce itself. A kind of presence that fills a room even before you say a single word. It's the power of peace, the quiet, steady, grounded energy that comes from a soul that is not easily shaken. And once you carry that kind of peace within you, people feel it instantly. This world is full of restless energy. People rushing, people competing, people projecting confidence to hide insecurity, people raising their voices because they're afraid their silence makes them irrelevant. But peace is different. Peace isn't loud. Peace isn't desperate. Peace isn't performative. Peace is a quiet knowing who you are, knowing what matters, knowing you don't have to prove anything to anyone. I didn't always understand this. There was a time when I believed that to be powerful, you had to be bold and loud and constantly asserting yourself. But life teaches you that volume doesn't equal influence. Stability does, presence does, consistency does. And the more I learned to cultivate peace within myself, the more I realized how much stronger, clearer, and more magnetic I became. People think peace is soft, gentle, passive. But peace is one of the most authoritative forces in the world. Because it's not just the absence of conflict, it's the presence of control. It's the ability to stay centered even when everything around you is pulling you off balance. It's the ability to listen without reacting, to speak without trembling, to choose without doubting. When you walk into a room with peace in your eyes, people notice. They can't explain it, but they feel it. They feel the steadiness in your energy. They feel that you're not threatened. They feel that you're not competing with anyone. They feel that your validation doesn't come from their approval, and that makes you unforgettable. Peace makes you magnetic because it makes people feel safe in your presence, not just physically safe, emotionally safe. They know they won't be judged. They know they won't be rushed. They know they won't be pulled into unnecessary drama. When your spirit is calm, people naturally gravitate toward you because calmness is rare. We live in a world where anxiety is normal, where stress is expected, where chaos is constant. But when someone carries peace, it feels like a breath of fresh air in a suffocating room. It feels like warmth in a cold space. It feels like clarity in confusion. And that is irresistible. But here's the beautiful truth: peace is a choice, not a coincidence. You don't just wake up with inner peace, you build it. You guard it, you protect it. You choose it again and again, especially when the world gives you 1,000 reasons not to. And the foundation of that peace is stillness. I remember moments in my life when everything seemed uncertain, when the noise around me felt overwhelming, when decisions felt heavy, when people's expectations clouded my own judgment, and every time I tried to force answers, the more confused I became. But the moment I allowed myself to be still, truly still, clarity returned. Peace returned, direction returned. Stillness teaches you that you are not your fear, you are not your stress, you are not the worst case scenarios your mind creates. You are something deeper, stronger, higher. And the more you return to that deeper self, the more peace becomes your natural state. Peace also changes the way you love. When you are calm inside, you don't love from insecurity, jealousy, or fear. You love from abundance, from patience, from trust. Your relationships become healthier because you're not operating from emotional chaos. You're operating from stability. And peace changes the way you lead. You don't make decisions out of panic. You don't chase opportunities out of desperation. You don't react to negativity with more negativity. You become thoughtful, intentional, grounded. And grounded people make wise choices. Peace even changes the way you dream. When you're anxious, dreams feel like pressure. When you're peaceful, dreams feel like invitation. You begin to trust the process. You begin to trust your timing. You begin to trust God's plan, even when you can't see it yet. And of course, peace changes the way you carry yourself. You start walking with a quiet confidence, a confidence that doesn't need attention, applause, or validation. A confidence that simply is. A confidence rooted in inner knowing rather than outer approval. People feel that. They admire it. They're drawn to it because it's rare, it's refreshing, it's real. So choose peace. Choose it in the morning before the world wakes up. Choose it at night when your mind begins to wander. Choose it in conflict. Choose it in uncertainty. Choose it in every moment where fear tries to take over. Choose peace because peace makes you powerful. And power wrapped in calmness is the most irresistible energy you can ever carry. Because when your heart is steady, your life becomes steady. And when your life becomes steady, everything you attract, people, opportunities, blessings, will reflect that same calm strength. There are seasons in life when strength isn't enough. Times when you can be the hardest worker in a room, the most disciplined person you know, the most determined soul in your circle, and still feel like you're standing at the edge of something too big, too heavy, too uncertain to carry alone. There are moments when life humbles you, moments when your own power feels small, when even your best efforts don't seem to be enough. And that's exactly when you discover the truth that changes everything. You were never meant to do this life alone. Stillness taught me that. Not the glamorous moments, not the victories, not the celebrations, but the quiet, vulnerable nights when I had no choice but to sit with myself, breathe and whisper, I need help. That whisper, that moment of surrender, that is where the greatest strength is born. People often confuse surrender with weakness, but surrender is not giving up. Surrender is opening up. It's saying, I cannot carry all of this on my own, but I believe something greater can carry it with me. It's the doorway to guidance. It's the doorway to clarity. It's the doorway to God. There's a certain clarity that only comes when you stop trying to control everything, when you stop trying to force answers, when you stop trying to outrun your own fears. In the stillness, you begin to feel something, a presence, a whisper, a direction, not loud, not overwhelming, just enough to remind you that you're not walking blindly, you're not stumbling through life alone, you're being guided. There were moments when I looked back at something that happened and realized I didn't get through that because of me. I got through that because I wasn't alone. You can call it intuition, you can call it faith, you can call it divine timing. I call it grace. Grace shows up in the pauses. Grace shows up in the detours. Grace shows up in the things you didn't get because you were meant for something better. And you only recognize that grace when you give yourself permission to be still. In stillness, you begin to feel connected to something deeper, something beyond your own strength, beyond your own plans, beyond your own understanding. You begin to understand that life is not random. Your journey is not accidental. Your steps are not aimless. Every experience, every setback, every breakthrough is shaping you in ways you can't yet see. And when you feel that connection, when you feel held, guided, protected, your entire energy shifts. You stop panicking. You stop doubting. You stop trying to force what isn't meant for you. You start trusting the process. You start breathing again. You start believing again. Stillness becomes a form of prayer, a conversation without words, a space where your spirit finally exhales. In that silence, you feel reassured that even when you don't know the next step, the path is already being prepared. Even when you don't see the whole picture, the pieces are falling into place. Even when you don't feel strong, strength is being built within you. This connection to something greater doesn't make your life perfect. It makes you anchored. It doesn't remove challenges. It reminds you that you're bigger than them. It doesn't eliminate storms, but it gives you shelter. Imagine walking through life, knowing you are carried, knowing you are supported, knowing you are guided. Not because you're lucky, but because you're loved. That kind of confidence is different. It's deeper. It's unshakable. It doesn't come from ego. It comes from faith. And that faith changes everything. It changes the way you make decisions. It changes the way you handle waiting. It changes the way you see setbacks. What once looked like rejection starts looking like redirection. What once felt like endings start feeling like beginnings. What once made you afraid starts making you grateful. Because now you understand that every closed door had a reason. Every delay had a purpose. Every breakdown had a lesson. And every moment of stillness was guiding you somewhere better. People who walk with faith carry a different kind of glow. It's not loud, it's not proud, it's not showy. It's quiet, it's steady, it's peaceful, it's irresistible. Because when someone knows they are guided, they move differently, they love differently, they speak differently. The path won't always be straight. The timing won't always make sense. But if you stay still long enough to listen, if you trust the whisper more than the noise, if you walk with faith even when your vision is blurry, you will always be led exactly where you're meant to be. So stand tall, stand peaceful, stand aligned with who you truly are, and go forward knowing this unshakable truth. What is meant for you will never pass you, and what is planted in you will never fail you. As long as you keep moving with faith, with courage, and with the quiet power of a steady heart, now breathe and step into the life that's waiting for you.